Does Joker deserve the death penalty? Why doesn't Batman kill the Joker led to some interesting conversations about whether Joker needs to get the death penalty. After all, we're talking about a sadistic clown that crippled Barbara Gordon, tortured Jim Gordon, murdered Jason Todd, and poisons entire populations at once. And he enjoys it. As 2008's The Dark Knight pointed out, he can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. He just wants to watch the world burn. And given how often he laughs when faced with his own demise, it's safe to say that he's comfortable dying in his own plots, indicating that his sense of self-preservation is lacking, which makes him all the more dangerous. There's only one way to deal with criminals of this nature: give them the death penalty. But this got me thinking, what if it's not that simple? Is Joker morally responsible for his actions? Again, we're going to delve into Batman and Philosophy, The Dark Night of the Soul. I added in some extra thoughts and kept things as neutral as possible, so you can decide for yourself if Joker is morally responsible for his actions. Voila! Let's dive into Gotham. Before giving someone the death penalty, should we know that they are not only causally responsible for their crimes, but also morally responsible? What if causal responsibility isn't enough? Causal responsibility is when someone's action causes a specific outcome. For example, let's say that Harold, Batman's mechanic, doesn't notice that the Batmobile's tire has taken damage and needs replacing. It blows out while Batman is driving. We'd agree that Harold bears causal responsibility for the Batmobile's failure, but moral responsibility means that someone bears moral approval or criticism for what they did. Let's say that when the Batmobile's tire blew out, an innocent bystander was injured. Would we say that Harold's morally responsible for the injured pedestrian? Probably not, because we all make mistakes, and we don't equate them with moral failure. Yes, Harold bore the responsibility of maintaining the Dark Knight's ride in safe, functioning order, and no doubt Batman would be having a talk with Harold about the vital importance of his job and of doing it to perfection. Batman might even fire him, but few, if any of us, would say that Harold is morally responsible for the bystander being injured. So while we agree that Joker is causally responsible for his crimes, what about his moral responsibility? This is where we delve into free will versus determinism. If we did not act on free will, but did what others forced us to do, no doubt we would not be morally responsible for our actions. But don't we act with free will? There are some who believe in determinism, that everything in the world is fixed. All of us and everything around us have been set in place by events and things prior, and that our actions and futures are predetermined. Some feel that determinism matches with science and the laws of nature. If this is true, then we aren't acting in free will, are we? But if you don't agree with determinism, rest assured that there's a scientific argument against it. Some have noted how random quantum mechanics are, proving that past does not always determine present or future. To explain determinism in Batman terms, let's pretend that Joker stole Mad Hatter's mind control chip and snuck it into Batman's cowl, and he's enhanced it so that he can read what Batman will do, and then he can intercede if he wants to before Batman acts and force Batman to do something different than what he intends. Let's say that Batman is fighting Two-Face. Joker wants Two-Face dead, and Joker also wants Batman to look bad. If Batman kills Two-Face, this will be a double win for the Joker. So, with this mind control chip in place, Joker will scan Batman's thoughts as he fights Harvey. If Batman decides to kill Two-Face, Joker will not stop him. But if Batman decides not to, Joker will intervene and force him to murder Harvey. Batman has a firm no-killing rule, but let's say for argument's sake that in this instance he killed Harvey. From an outsider's perspective, we'd think he did so freely, not realizing that he didn't have a choice. If he had decided not to, Joker would have forced him. That's determinism. One last aspect we need to discover for this argument is what is called an epistemological problem, or a problem where we might not ever know if a person deserves moral approval or criticism for what they've done. Let's go back to Batman's showdown with Two-Face. Because killing Two-Face was a fixed outcome, we can't know whether Batman deserves the moral criticism for killing him unless we look into Batman's mind and discover whether he willed to kill Harvey. So now we're going to combine our knowledge of causal and moral responsibility and determinism and free will to decide if Joker is morally responsible for what he does. To note, free will is more than what we do. It involves the freedom of thought, what someone's motivations are, and if they want to alter their motivations. For instance, Batman has to choose daily if he wants to rest and heal from previous fights, or continue fighting for Gotham's safety and rescuing people in peril. But this is a very black and white example, and life isn't always this simple. There are people who aren't in control of themselves. They are incapable of exercising free will. Mental illness and trauma can cause these issues. And what about addicts? So many of them, no matter how badly they want to rehabilitate, never have the willpower to get off of drugs. Some do, but a few, unfortunately, sometimes can't stay off drugs for good, and they relapse. Sadly, numerous people die every year from overdoses and complications due to taking illicit drugs. Not all addicts steal, but many do to fund their addictions. Would we say that addicts are morally responsible for their actions? Perhaps they aren't, especially if they were forced into their addiction, or if they had horrible parents who gave them drugs when they were only children. But if they were of sound mind and exercised free will when they started using drugs, then it could be argued that they are morally responsible for what they could commit after. Acts of violence, theft, loss of healthy relationships, breaches of trust, car crashes caused by driving under the influence, which comes with the possibility of killing someone, and premature death. After all, in the year 2022, we'd have a hard time finding someone who's over the age of 15 who's not aware of the dangers that come with drugs. In addition to the drug awareness programs geared toward kids, we also have numerous books and movies that have built awareness of the consequences that come with taking drugs. Therefore, if someone exercises their free will to do drugs with full knowledge that these consequences might follow, we could argue that they are morally responsible for what they do as addicts. So if we consider Joker's origin story in The Killing Joke, we could say that he is morally responsible for his wicked behavior, because if he hadn't entered a life of crime to support his family, he wouldn't have had the encounter with Batman that led to him falling into a vat of chemicals. But on the other hand, he might not be morally responsible, because what were the odds that he would have survived falling into toxic goo? Any normal person would have died. The chances of a human falling into a giant tub of deadly chemicals and then not only living, but coming out changed in appearance and mind like he did, it was more likely that he'd be struck by lightning. He couldn't have possibly predicted that his life of petty crime would lead to him becoming the Joker, so he can't be held morally responsible. But often, aside from The Killing Joke, we don't know Joker's origin, and knowing his origin, his possible change of motivation, is a vital piece of determining whether he is morally responsible and deserves the death penalty. However, society would also have a good argument if they said that, despite Joker's origin, motivation, and whether his free will is lacking, killing him is necessary to protect all the innocents he'll kill in the future if he doesn't change. Maybe Joker is an epistemological problem, but would we be right to kill him? Maybe we're in the same conundrum as Batman. Do we kill Joker to presumably save future lives? This brings us full circle to the video that launched this one. Why doesn't Batman kill the Joker? There will be a card for it here, and there will be a link to it in the description box and at the end screen. What do all of you think? Is Joker morally responsible for his crimes, or only causally responsible? Does he deserve the death penalty either way? What would you do if you worked in the criminal justice system in Gotham and you had to decide what to do with Joker? Would you feel guilty if you had to take his life? Let me know in the comments below. As always, keep weaving the threads of your stories.